Hi everyone, hope you're well. Just wanted to give some feedback and reflect back the results of our recent quick Back to Church survey. Thank you so much for taking the time to register your responses to the questions on that. We had actually about 41 respondents in the end, which I think gives us a good measure of where the church community is at. It's comparable to the survey that we did in July of 2020. Which was, believe it or not, our out of lockdown survey. That would have been, of course, the first lockdown, and we had about 45 respondents on that survey. So I just want to relay back the results, make a few comments, not too many, and compare where appropriate with the last survey as well, because I think there's some interesting data there as well. First of all, the whole area that we looked at, first of all, was in terms of where we're at personally, in terms of our spiritual, mental, emotional, physical health. So the first question was about our relationship with Jesus and our own spiritual health. And of course, respondents could click more than one answer. So for example, those who clicked dry and distant could also click hopeless, pointless. But as you can see, the majority of responses were those who felt that things were stable and steady in terms of their relationship with Jesus and their spiritual health. That was closely followed, however, by another amount of people who registered that they felt dry and distant. There were only a few who thought that they were at one or other extreme in terms of hopeless, pointless, or enthusiastic and excited. And I think that reflects, doesn't it, what we've observed, that very few of us actually are what we would say firing on all cylinders, overflowing with zeal for Jesus at the moment. However, it does reflect that there is a healthy core group of people who are remaining plugged into Jesus. And alongside that, however, a good chunk of people who are feeling dry, feeling in need of spiritual replenishment. And of course, as we've reflected, that is very much the result of the way that we've been isolated for a long, prolonged season now from the life and community of the church. So that was the first question. Secondly, we asked about relationship with the life and mission of the church, and there was, as maybe you predict, a similar spread. In that about half are feeling involved, they are feeling engaged, but the other half are feeling detached and disengaged. And again, that is the inevitable result of isolation, the fact that we haven't been able to enjoy what we understand as normal New Testament church life. Zoom and online church have been helpful to an extent, but they haven't been a substitute for real life relationships and the interpersonal stuff that happens at the heart of normal church life. Third question was in terms of physical health. And I think things to note are that 18% of respondents registered within the bottom three categories of this question, and only 40% within the top three categories. Now compare that, interestingly, to 2020, July, when we had 70% registering in the top three categories and only 11% within the bottom three. And that reflects, I think, what has been a deterioration in terms of our own physical health and well-being. Mental emotional health was the next one, and again, nearly 15% rated their mental emotional health as poor, and only 33% within the top three categories. Compare that again to July 2020, when only 6.7% rated their mental emotional health as poor, and over 40% registered that they were in the top three categories. And again, I think that reflects that there has been a deterioration in the mental and emotional health of many as a result of the isolation that we've been experiencing. Next question was on marriage and family life, where relevant. And this wasn't as marked a difference as the survey that we did in July 2020. The responses reflect that slightly more people registered that this was an area that they rated as poor now compared to last July or in crisis, and less people registered that this was an area where they felt they were flourishing. So some questions there about where we feel we're at personally. I think overall what it's reflecting is that there has been an impact, a very real impact, on the physical, emotional, mental health and marriage and family life of many in the church community. And, we've had to cope with additional stresses. We've had to cope with isolation to one degree or another. And so I want to encourage us to continue to be praying for one another. I personally, from the very beginning of lockdown, made it a point of praying pretty much daily for the health and well-being of our church community. And I'd encourage you to keep praying for the health and well-being of our church community. I want to encourage us to do all the stuff that Belinda was encouraging us to do last Sunday when she spoke about the importance of being devoted to the fellowship, being proactive in terms of reaching out to one another. And if you are in a real hole, I want to encourage you to reach out. The survey does reflect that there are a number of people who are steady, stable, feeling relatively positive. And so I want to encourage you to reach out to those kinds of people and register your need of support at the moment. I think the reality is, of course, that this shows that we're not what some have called match fit, and that there is therefore going to need to be a period of time where we enjoy something of a restoration, something of rehab, if you like. The good news, of course, is that the Jesus that we know and love and come to and who invites us to come to him has done everything necessary to provide fully for that kind of deep heart restoration. And he's the one that invites us to come. He's the one that says, come, if you're weary, come, if you're heavy laden, and take my yoke upon you. I'll give you rest. And so I want to encourage us, let's keep coming to him, whether that's personally, whether that's in terms of the context of our corporate gatherings. Let's find what we need at this particular time in Christ. Now, the next load of questions were more about the vaccine and church life, so let's reflect back on some of those. In terms of the vaccine, the survey showed that 81.8% of the respondents have, at time of survey, had 2 doses of the vaccine, and another 15.2% have had 1 dose of the vaccine. And so the reality is that what that reflects, projecting towards the end of the summer, is that by that point, pretty much everyone has been fully vaccinated who responded to the survey, about 97% of respondents. And I think that's an important, encouraging figure to note as we think about how we weigh up our plans to return to regathering with the church community. Now, it doesn't, of course, mean that there is no risk. The reality is that is never going to be the case. And it's not something we can promise. It's not something particularly that we can expect. But it does mean that our church community is a bunch of people who are pretty much fully vaccinated. Of course, that doesn't include the children. But compared to, for example, the UK figures at the moment, which for over 18s are about 71% double vaccinated and 88% single vaccinated, it does reflect the fact that we are, going beyond that in terms of our church community. Next question was about Sundays, and nearly half have already attended in person. It was good to see a few new faces this last Sunday. And in addition to that, about 36% have been watching the live stream live. About 18% have not either been at our in-person gathering or watched the live stream live. And it's quite a lot harder to get a sense of who's out there with the live stream compared to Zoom, for example. But looking at the numbers watching the live stream, it's been encouraging to see that has had a lot more engagement than, for example, our Zoom meetings. Along with that, we do need to recognise this figure of about 18%, that nearly 20% then, for one reason or another, have got out of the rhythm of being with their church community, either in person or online, on a Sunday morning, and are presumably doing other things on a Sunday morning. And I think one of the dangers that we flagged up of this time that reflects is that that might become a permanent and defining feature of their lives going forward. Life groups, 63.6% have attended, 36.4% not. We had some good positive feedback from those that have been at life groups. Comments like, these have been a lifeline. This has been really important to me. Real blessing in terms of building meaningful relationships. So more than half the church have attended those life groups, and we are relaunching life groups from the autumn and want to invite you to give us your ideas. There are plenty of opportunities for new people to host new groups for the autumn term and to bring some extra creativity, to do some new things. Our life groups are not now limited to online Zoom meetings. We can meet in person in homes, cafes, here in the upper room, elsewhere. So let me encourage you in the coming weeks, have a think about what you would like to see happen and whether you might be part of the answer to seeing that happen in terms of our life groups. Future plans now, nearly 60% already, of course, attending or planning to attend now that restrictions have come to an end. In addition to that, another 3% who are looking to the autumn. But then another 18% who are unsure when they might return, and 15% who are not planning on attending in the foreseeable future. Interestingly, when we asked the question in 2020 of what folk felt would be the appropriate markers that would indicate it was right to reattend, most people responded that once theatres and live entertainment venues were reopened, social distancing, stay-at-home restrictions were lifted, and the government track and trace system was in place, that was how they would measure when it would be appropriate for us to return to in-person church gatherings. And I wonder whether our means of measuring these things has actually changed over the last year or so, and whether perhaps we've even become more cautious than we were 12 months or so ago. Main factors not returning, predictably, catching the virus or passing it on to others. And then finally, our collaboration with Life Church, where we had 67.7% positive about this development. 22.6% hesitant but feeling it's worth exploring, 9.7% indifferent, and actually no one feeling that this was something we should not be pursuing. So that is encouraging, and in time, in the coming months, we will keep you updated with how things are developing there. So hopefully that's helpful. Lots for us to digest as we navigate our way through what's actually quite a tricky season at the moment of change and transition. And I want to encourage us, let's continue to pray. And I look forward in the coming weeks to seeing a few more of you here. We've got all sorts of opportunities over the summer to rebuild those all-important relationships that we have missed so much and that have suffered on the back of the isolation that we've been through. Open homes every Sunday from 1:30 p.m. onwards, a barbecue on August the 29th, and really would look forward to seeing you there. We'd be delighted to have you with us. So God bless. Let's keep praying. Hopefully that's been interesting, helpful. If you want to, feedback in any way on the back of those figures, then feel free to do that.